This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The President of the Republic, Ms. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has congratulated the Algerian women's basketball team for the victory for the category of people with disabilities after winning the African title for the sixth consecutive time. As part of his official visit to Switzerland, the Minister of State, Minister of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Ahmed Attaf, discussed ways and means to reinforce bilateral cooperation and partnership. And the military escalation in the Middle East and Gulf countries are showing no sign of easing on the 34th day of the conflict, even as peace initiatives continue to multiply and international voices continue to raise to stop hostilities. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. Good afternoon. First in our news, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has congratulated the Algerian women's basketball team for the category of people with disabilities after winning the African title for the sixth consecutive time. In a message posted on his social media account, President Tebboune thanked the Algerian athletes, stressing that this victory is a great honor for Algerian sport. It's worth noting that the Algerian women's wheelchair basketball team managed to preserve the African Championship title after defeating South Africa 45-30 in the final game held Thursday evening in Luanda, Angola. With this victory, the Algerian players secured qualification for the 2026 World Championship in Canada, marking their third appearance after the 2018 edition in Germany and 2022 in the UAE. As part of his official visit to Switzerland, the Minister of State, Minister of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Ahmed Attaf, was received in Bern by the President of the Swiss National Council, Pierre-André Page, according to a ministry statement. More on this topic with our colleague Mariam Bershi.
Talks reviewed the various aspects of Algerian-Swiss friendship and cooperation while highlighting the shared political will to further strengthen ties. Both sides also discussed how the two parliaments could help reinforce the bilateral partnership, particularly through the use of parliamentary diplomacy mechanisms. Earlier, Mr. Attaf was also received by the Swiss Federal Councillor Ignacio Cassis, Vice President of Switzerland and head of the Federal Department of Foreign Affairs. The meeting allowed examining all aspects of Algerian-Swiss relations and explored ways to expand cooperation through strengthened political dialogue, economic partnership and human-centered collaboration. It was agreed to establish an institutional mechanism to develop bilateral cooperation and enhance the legal framework governing relations based on mutually defined priorities. The ministers also discussed regional and international issues of shared concern, including developments in the Middle East and the Sahel-Saharan region. In a side session, they reviewed the historical ties between Algeria and Switzerland, highlighting Swiss support during the Algerian War of Independence and their role in the Evian negotiations leading to independence. Both ministers emphasized the need to leverage this shared historical legacy to strengthen solidarity and friendship between the two countries.
The national air company Air Algérie has resumed its flights linking Algiers to Addis Ababa on Thursday. The ceremony marking the first flight between the two capitals, held in the Ethiopian capital, was presided over by Algeria's ambassador to Ethiopia and permanent representative to the African Union, Mohamed Khalid, accompanied by embassy staff. This historic step comes in implementation of the instructions of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, aimed at strengthening Algeria's presence on the African continent as part of efforts to reinforce the historic ties of friendship and cooperation between Algeria and Ethiopia. Internationally now, the military escalation in the Middle East and Gulf countries are showing no sign of easing on the 34th day of the conflict, even as peace initiatives continue to multiply and international voices continue to raise to stop hostilities. Mariam Bershi has more details in this report.
Reports from the countries involved continue to describe heavy human losses, damage to equipment, and the destruction of key infrastructure, leaving local populations exposed to severe shortages and growing risks. Strikes carried out in recent hours have also damaged ancient cultural, religious and archaeological sites, raising serious international concern over the collateral damage caused by the military option. In a statement, UNESCO expressed regret over the destruction of numerous cultural, religious and archaeological landmarks since the escalation began on February 28th, stressing that these treasures, which belong to the shared heritage of humanity, must never be targeted. Beyond the devastating humanitarian and cultural consequences, the effects of the military escalation are becoming increasingly catastrophic for the global economy. World Bank Managing Director Pascal Donoé said he was very worried about the impact of the world economy, expressing concern about the consequences of the conflict on inflation, jobs and food security. Faced with this situation, the international community, which has been holding its breath since the start of the escalation, is intensifying efforts to bring the warring sides to the negotiating table. China said on Thursday that it was ready to work with countries in the region to help end the conflict, restore peace and establish lasting stability in the Middle East. Russia also signaled its readiness to contribute to resolving the conflict in the Middle East and the Gulf region. Kremlin spokesperson said Moscow was continuing its contacts and remained prepared to help shift the military confrontation toward a peaceful settlement as quickly as possible. The United Kingdom, for its part, announced a virtual meeting involving representatives of around 30 countries aimed at restoring and guaranteeing the security of maritime transport. Likewise, Italy reaffirmed its support for a diplomatic resolution, warning of the wider repercussions of the escalation, particularly the risk of increased migration flows. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres warned that continued military escalation would only deepen the spiral of death and destruction, stressing that diplomacy remained the only path to peace. Speaking in New York, he said the ongoing war was worsening human suffering, destruction and attacks on civilians and infrastructure, while raising the risk of a broader regional war with global consequences. He highlighted the disruption of freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz, noting its impact on food and energy prices worldwide, especially for vulnerable countries. Guterres reiterated that disputes must be resolved peacefully, in line with international law and the UN Charter, urging the United States and Israel to hold the war, while calling on Iran to stop attacks on its neighbors, stressing that dialogue must replace destruction before the crisis widens further.
I remain in close contact with the parties, and I'm dispatching my personal envoy, Jean Arnaud, to the region to support these efforts. We must find a peaceful way out. My message is clear to the United States and Israel. It's high time to stop the war that is inflicting immense human suffering and already triggering devastating economic consequences. To Iran, to stop attacking their neighbors. The Security Council has condemned these attacks and reaffirmed the need to respect navigational rights and freedoms along critical maritime routes, including the Strait of Hormuz. Conflicts do not end on their own. They end when leaders choose dialogue over destruction. That choice still exists and must be made now.
That was the United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres.
UNDP Administrator Alexander De Croo has indicated that Syria was at a pivotal moment, noting that the return of more than 1.6 million people last year had sharply increased needs for housing, public services and jobs. Speaking from Damascus alongside Humanitarian Chief Tom Fletcher, so De Croo said the country was now in a position to move beyond emergency and toward development and recovery work, warning that failure to restore services could discourage further returns. He added that Syria could become a much-needed regional success story if the international community invested in reconstruction and long-term support. Let's listen to him.
After a too long period of an atrocious war with too many casualties, you see that we are here at a pivotal moment. And at a moment where, next to providing humanitarian aid, and there is still need for humanitarian aid, we are at a moment where we can shift from purely humanitarian to also doing development work. Development work for many reasons, but the main reason is that we see that there is quite some returnees. Last year, more than 1.6 million people have returned to Syria, have returned to reconstruct their country, to come back to the country which they have left, often in dramatic circumstances. That leads to increased needs on housing, needs on government services, needs on jobs. And providing those services are really crucial, because if we're not able to provide those services, well, actually people who had the intention to return might at some point make the choice to not return at all.
And for his part, Tom Fletcher sounded the alarm regarding the disastrous situation prevailing in southern Lebanon on account of the barbaric Israeli aggression against this country. He pointed out that the frightening number of Lebanese who are now on the move to flee or in order to flee the attacks, calling for more cohesion among the Lebanese themselves to overcome this ordeal.
1 in 5 people in Lebanon is displaced right now. I saw for myself enormous destruction, the impact of coercive displacement, and came away with 2 real concerns, which I've shared with the Security Council. One, that we may be facing the prospect, and from the sound of the statements being made by some Israeli ministers, it's a real danger of a fresh occupation, of a fresh occupied territory in southern Lebanon. But also I came away with a real concern about national cohesion and the importance of all Lebanese parties pulling together in this moment of real fragility and concern, as so many people are on the move.
Still in the Middle East, the Palestinian National Council welcomed the Portuguese Parliament's majority vote on 2 resolutions condemning the seizure of Palestinian lands and Israel's plans to annex parts of the occupied West Bank, including East Al-Quds, according to a Palestinian news agency, Wafa. Council President Ruhi Fatouh said the vote reflected an advanced understanding of the serious violations by the occupation authorities and a clear commitment to international law, which prohibits land seizure by force and criminalizes annexation and settlement policies. He added that the parliamentary stance sends a clear legal and political message rejecting colonial practices and strongly supports the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people, particularly their right to self-determination and independence. Fatouh called on national, regional and international parliaments to adopt similar positions, moving from mere condemnation to effective action, including measures to hold Israel accountable, apply international pressure and halt annexation and settlement expansion. And Russia has launched successive aerial strikes on Ukraine overnight, including some 500 drones and 40 missiles, according to Ukraine's Air Force, which reported that numerous hostile drones remained in the country's airspace. The attack marked the second time this week that Moscow combined an overnight drone wave with intense daytime strikes, suggesting a new approach aimed at testing and bypassing Ukraine's air defense systems. Kiev Regional Governor Mykola Kalaskinik said the area was again facing a large-scale missile and drone attack. And finally, back to Algeria, where the 4th Game and Comic Con Zaire GCCDZ show dedicated to fans of comics, manga, gaming, cinema, and cosplay opened Thursday at the Mufti Zakaria Palace of Culture in Algiers, drawing a large crowd of people. Running until April 4 under the patronage of the Ministry of Culture and Arts, this year's edition features themed zones for exhibitors, cosplay contests, gaming, digital art, children's activities, and free-to-play spaces. A new digital art gallery and an esports arena have also been introduced. Organizers said the event continues to grow each year with the 2026 edition, given winners of the fighting games competition the chance to compete at EVO Japan in Tokyo, the world's leading fighting game tournament. The show also includes talks by international guests, including Raphael Luz, voice actors from The Simpsons, and professionals from the video game and film industries, alongside a special section dedicated to Algerian game developers. And with this last piece of news, we come to the end of this news bulletin. Time now for a weekly program with our colleague Jamal Silmani. As for me, I'll meet you again tomorrow for a fresh edition of our news bulletin. Thank you.
Hello to your weekly program, Destination Algeria. I'm Jamal Semani. There are a number of great destinations in Algeria that waiting to be discovered. A curious mixture of cultures and influences. Algeria has something interesting to see in just about every city. The country is also the first largest on the African continent, so you can be sure that there are plenty of towns and cities to visit. Let's visit Algeria's fascinating destinations, you and I, together. Amsel is a small town situated just south of Tamanrasset province. Tamanrasset or Tamanrasset is a province in southern Algeria in the Ahagar Mountains. Tamanrasset is the chief city of the Algerian Tuareg. Very near to Amsel, you will find the huge Ahagar Mountains, also known as the Hogar. They are situated in the middle of the Sahara Desert in the southern part of Algeria. The Ahagar mountain region is mainly a rocky desert area with an average altitude of more than 900 meters above sea level. The highest peak, Tahat, is at 2,918 meters above sea level. A celebrated and especially visited point is the Askram, where Charles de Foucault lived in the summer of 1905. Amsel is a lovely destination for a day trip, and it is a wonderful retreat during the busy summer months. The town has a great reservoir, and swimming is allowed. The water of the reservoir is clean and clear and usually has a nice cool temperature. Amsel itself is very much a stranded town with very few attractions to see. But it's worthwhile to stroll around the shops for a bit of relaxation and bargain hunting. As long as you keep in mind that Amsel is a small village situated right in the middle of the Sahara Desert, you'll be fine. Amsel has a typical desert climate. It is very hot and sometimes unbearable in the summer. In sharp contrast, winter temperatures often fall well below 0 degrees Celsius. Rainfall is very rare and sporadic. However, since the climate is less extreme than most other areas of the Sahara, Amsel is a major location for biodiversity. Today, Amsel and Tamanrasset province is a prime tourist destination in Algeria. In the first part of our program, I mentioned the name Charles de Foucault. In the second part, we'll tell you more about him with Mohamed Barazwan.
Part of the Ahagar Mountains, also known as the Hogar Mountains. In southern Algeria, the Askram is a spectacular collection of narrow mountain peaks in shades of brown and ochre, which have been artistically carved by the elements. This geological wonder attracts visitors from far and wide, while awestruck by its natural beauty. The Ascram is also renowned for being the site of the hermitage of Charles de Foucault, which is now the retreat of Little Brothers of Jesus, who continue the humanitarian work he started back in 1910. Charles-Jean de Foucault was born into an aristocratic family in Strasbourg, France, on the 15th of September 1858. He became a Trappist monk in 1890, left Morocco in 1897, and traveled to Algeria to live a life of ascetic solitude. He founded a hermitage in Beni Abbas, Algeria, and welcomed visitors regardless of their religion, social status, or ethnic origin. Later on, Charles de Foucault moved to Tamanrasset in southern Algeria to be with the Tuareg people. He used the highest point of the Hagara Mountains, the Ascram, as a place to establish his hermitage. He associated closely with the Tuareg for a period of more than 10 years, during which time he studied their cultural traditions and worked on a dictionary and the grammar of the Tuareg language. Charles de Foucault died in 1916, just outside Tamanrasset. The dictionary was published in 4 volumes after his death, with rich and accurate descriptions. Charles de Foucault was considered to be a martyr of the Catholic Church and was beatified by Pope Benedict XVI on the 13th of November 2005. Visitors to the Ascram will not fail to agree with Charles de Foucault, whose words are inscribed in a book of his writings at a hermitage. Quote, "The beauty of the view defies description or even imagination. It is marvelous." Unquote.
Located in the Batna province here in Algiers, the Belezma National Park is considered to be one of the most important national parks in this vast biodiverse country. Created in 1984 and covering an area of more than 262 square kilometers, the climate in Belezma National Park ranges from a dry semi-arid climate to a cool sub-humid climate, creating a variety of habitats for an even greater variety of wildlife. Belezma National Park is home to more than 440 species of flora and in excess of 300 species of fauna, 59 of which have the status of being protected. The Cuvier's gazelle, for example, is one of the protected species in the Belezma National Park. It is believed that there are only approximately 2,000 of these beautiful endangered animals remaining in 8 northern African nature reserves, including the Belezma National Park. The Dorcas gazelle is particularly suited to life in desert conditions. Although they enjoy a drink of water when they can get it, these graceful animals are able to survive their entire lives without drinking water by getting all the moisture they need from the plants they eat. The Dorcas gazelle is on the International Union for Conservation of Nature Red List of Threatened Species and is protected in the Belezma National Park. Atlas Barbary sheep, which is a species of goat antelope, is becoming a rare sight in its native North African habitat, although it has been introduced into parts of the United States.